Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I know. I haven't made a video in a hot minute. Go ahead, you can throw your shit at my face if you want to. But stay tuned at the end of this video to figure out why I've been absent. But for now, we're going to talk about the top 10 best movies of 2024. I know I usually do top 15, but the reason for the change is because I thought this year was actually kinda whack, not gonna lie. And yes, I did try to see everything, and I still thought this year was mid. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't good movies. Obviously, I wouldn't make this video if there weren't, but I'm not passionate about them, minus a few, so I'll give away my 15 through 11 as honorable mentions, however. So, 15, Honora. 14, Dune Part 2. 13, Hundreds of Beavers. 12, Sing Sing. 11, A Different Man, which almost made the top 10. It could make the top 10 in the future, probably. And here's some other movies that I really like that I would consider honorable mentions. Alright, here's the top 10. I mean, yeah, what the fuck do you want me to say? What can I say that does justice as to how batshit insane this movie is? Listen, I've said many times that Evil Dead 2 is the craziest movie I've ever seen. The substance almost surpassed Evil Dead 2 in the crazy factor. And I love it. I love how unsubtle and in-your-face the message is, and when I first saw it, I didn't like how unsubtle it was, but I feel like the unsubtlety just kind of adds to the craziness. It's like it's grabbing you by the shoulders, shaking you, and screaming at you to love yourself, and then showing you all this fucked up imagery along the way to help you understand. It has some of the most creative use of camera angles that I've seen in a long time, going from POV to shaky cam, extreme close-ups, the use of worm's eye view. Are you serious? This movie is a lot. It's a lot to take in, but it's incredibly rewarding by the end of it. The final 10 minutes is, I'm serious, the craziest thing I've ever seen in a movie. Corley held nothing back. I guess kind of in the same vein, except a lot more subtle and refuses to hold your hand. As someone who knew who William S. Burroughs was and how insane his life was before going into this movie absolutely does him and his work justice. His work is known for pretty much being deranged, depressing, and most of all impossible to adapt to the big screen, but Luca Guadagnino and writer Justin Kuritsky's, they just went for it. I don't know how to describe it without giving anything away. To describe accurately what goes on in Queer feels like explaining color to a blind person. It's really just something you have to see to believe. This movie in a nutshell just feels like a very haunting dream. Not a nightmare, but a sad, haunting dream. The atmosphere this movie portrays feels so disorienting and confusing. It's almost as if you're drunk. Like you're looking at a world that you don't understand and you just slowly start to accept it. Daniel Craig's performance was incredible. He proved that he's a perfect fit for this world, and he's incredibly convincing, and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score is something I can't get out of my head. It's actually so hard to review this movie, holy shit. This is my favorite Luca, bar none. This may be higher in the future. The most overlooked movie of the year. Good One is a movie that tricks you. It's a movie surrounded by nature, the beauty of nature, and spending it with people you love. But as the movie goes along, you start to realize there's a kind of disturbing undertone to it. And then that bombshell happens. I won't give anything away, but it's nothing that other movies haven't tackled before. But I don't think a movie has ever tackled it in a way that has made me more uncomfortable. And yes, I mean that in a good way. And I think it's because of the unpredictability that the movie portrays. These characters are developed well enough for me to believe their reactions, and I think that's why this movie works overall. It feels too real. And I will say it leads to a satisfying ending, but I kind of have a darker view on where it goes that I won't spoil. Maybe one day I'll talk about it, but it's just best to go in blind. This movie is the reason why it took me a while to make this video. It took forever for this movie to come near me, and it was honestly annoying, like holy fuck, MGM, release your movies better, goddamn. Anyway, I've never seen anything like this, I don't think. A movie that works because it's the experimentation of the movie that elicits the emotional reaction. That experimentation being the fact that this whole movie is filmed entirely in first-person point of view. It's a risky move. One wrong move and this could have been the goofiest movie ever made, but this movie proves otherwise almost immediately. I won't give away what this movie is actually about because I didn't know and it surprised me, but once you find out, it's immediately clear why the first person POV was used and why it just makes it devastating. By the time this movie ended, I just sat there frozen in my seat, enamored by the beauty of what I just witnessed. This is a true unicorn of a movie. If anyone says there's no originality anymore, just show them this and they'll shut up. I only saw this movie once, that being yesterday at the time that I'm recording this. That's why it's only 7 for now, but I feel like after more viewings it'll go higher. This was incredible. Yeah, these final 6 were so hard to arrange. This is literally an anything can happen list, except for probably my number 1 that's pretty much solidified at this point. Because Perfect Days lives up to the title. It's just perfect. Well, okay, not entirely. My only real flaw with this movie and why it's only at number 6 right now, despite me loving it to pieces, is because they choose to have the main character not speak as much for a majority of the movie, and that's fine. But there are moments where it can become goofy, and it took me out of the realism of the movie for just a little bit. That's it. Everything else I think is wonderful. Despite me saying the fact that he doesn't speak as much can make some scenes too goofy at times, the main actor is absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. His facial expressions and his physicality feel so authentic. This guy just loves his job cleaning toilets. He loves the people he interacts with. He loves classic rock. He loves his city. He loves waking up every day. And that love feels infectious because of this performance. This movie feels like it breathes new life into your lungs. Like it pulls your eyelids open and makes you never take anything for granted ever again. This movie feels like a love poem to mundane life. I knew exactly that this was a meditative experience when I noticed that all the classic rock needle drops were quite literally perfectly placed. All of them are made to make you feel like you're listening to them for the first time. My favorite needle drop being Pale Blue Eyes by Velvet Underground, not only because it's my favorite song by them, but because it fit the atmosphere of the scene perfectly. Gray clouds, sun just about to rise, driving through an empty neighborhood, it's just perfect. Sorry, I wanted an excuse to talk about that. But, yeah, great movie. Yeah, some people might be upset with the placement of this movie in this video, but this was the first movie that I was obsessed with this year. This was the movie that I've seen the most this year. I just can't get enough of it. Love Lies Bleeding is a lot of things. It's dark, it's disgusting, it's funny, it's romantic, it's artistic, it's violent, it's mean, it's empathetic, it's bizarre, and I fell in love with it first viewing. This is the best 80s movie that never came out in the 80s, just high key. It's been a while since I've seen a movie balance tone as well as this does. It deals with pretty fucked up and bizarre subject matter, but somehow manages to find the humor in it and still makes it tasteful. It's kind of amazing how much this movie just works. Glass really holds nothing back here, and really isn't afraid to be as ridiculous and as gross as possible. This is one of those movies that earns its title as shocking, other than the substance. Because when the body horror starts to happen, there's really no time to put your guard up, and there really isn't a care in the world if you're ready for it or not. There are images in this movie that are so hideous and disturbing, but you can't look away. Especially during scenes whenever a character is going through a drug trip, it becomes borderline anxiety-inducing and terrifying. It's honestly the best Cronenberg movie Cronenberg never made. I almost missed this at Sundance. I hated Jesse Eisenberg's previous movie, When You Finish Saving the World, so I assumed I would just hate this. But when the buzz from Sundance came out, I became eager to see this, and thankfully I did. This is probably the movie this year that's most made for me. A slice-of-life dramedy about broken humans set in Poland with the Chopin soundtrack. It's made for me. But what I didn't expect was how much I was going to relate to this. I see myself in both of these characters for very different reasons. I feel like it's been a while since I cared this much about characters. All their breakdowns and conversations are something that I've experienced as well as other people that I know experienced. It's kind of scary how much this movie just gets it right. And I never expected it to come from Jesse Eisenberg of all people. But I think what I love most about this movie is just how tasteful everything is portrayed here. Every topic covered here is handled so carefully, but never feels too sentimental or too nonchalant. It handles everything in such a human and realistic way, and I think for that reason this movie will never bore me. A great example of this is the Holocaust concentration camp tour scene. It's done almost in complete silence, other than the tour guide just explaining everything. It's easily the most tasteful and educational way you can handle a topic that sensitive. And from now on, I'll watch anything that Eisenberg directs, because if you ask me, he nailed it. There are very few movies as quietly devastating as I Saw the TV Glow. This movie is an enigma. There's no other way around it. I say that very few movies are so quietly devastating because I also believe that very few movies pull off this feeling of memory. Every single frame of this feels like a memory caught on film, and for that I think I would call this the first of its kind. And I think the most disturbing element is, I feel like anyone can somehow relate to this. Of course not everyone is part of the LGBTQ community, but what I mean is we've all kept something in for so long that we felt like it was killing us, even if we don't know exactly what that thing is. And what's worse is that we have this fear of time and being closer to our deaths. Jane Schoenbrunn somehow captured the experience of coming out without explicitly talking about being LGBTQ. There's not even a single scene where they say the word trans, and I think that's really powerful. They're never overbearing or preachy with the message, instead they give us so much to think about while also just disturbing us. The ending scene especially is one of the most emotionally despairing endings I may have ever seen, like the birthday party scene and then all the way to the end. It fucks me up every time. If you saw my TikTok video on my favorite movies of 2024, then you're probably confused right now because I put this movie as my number 1. Well, things have changed clearly, though I still adore this movie a lot. Maybe it's just my bias when it comes to coming-of-age movies, but not only did I feel insanely nostalgic watching this, but this movie captures the teenage loneliness scarily well, and in a surprisingly wholesome way. It could have been so easy for this to be too cheesy, but I love how Shawn Wang doesn't wrap everything up in a little bow, because that's not really how life works sometimes. There are things that are just never resolved, there are questions left unanswered, and I started to feel kind of okay with that. The kid got the ending that he deserved and very clearly learned so much along the way, and I think that's what matters. That's how it differentiates itself from other coming-of-age movies. It shows us that life may be awkward and confusing to begin with, but it's all a series of learning experiences, and even if you have no one, you still have your family. I didn't expect this movie to be a tribute to mothers, but yeah, Joan Chen is one of my favorite movie moms, and probably my favorite performance of the whole year. It's such a down-to-earth and empathetic performance, and her monologue warms my heart every single time. She reminds me a lot of my mom, and I appreciate that. I appreciate this movie. Hi Mom, love ya. Yeah, after some thought, this is definitely number one. Memoir of a Snail is one of the best animated movies that I've ever seen. Maybe after a few watches, it'll become one of the best movies that I've ever seen, just in general. Because this is one of the most poignant movies I've ever had the pleasure of watching. I kind of knew what to expect because I had seen Adam Elliott's previous movie, Mary and Max, and I've also seen Harvey Crumpet, which he also made, so I knew he understood how to depict mental health tastefully, but I wasn't expecting for this to be quite possibly the best and most mature depiction of depression that I've ever seen. Yes, this movie is about a woman going through depression, because her life is a series of unfortunate events. And yes, calling this movie depressing is an understatement, but this movie has this glimmer of hope all throughout it, and by the end, it's so well realized in the most satisfying way. People might call this trauma porn, and I can see where they're coming from, but I feel like looking at it that way kind of blinds you from the hope that this movie is trying to convey. I feel like this movie exists to help anyone struggling to find the light at the end of the tunnel, and let them know that things do get better. And that's something that I really needed to hear. There's a monologue from Jackie Weaver's character that pretty much gives away the message of the movie, and there was one line that she says within that monologue that was so perfectly stated that I just started sobbing.
I've learned that the worst cages are the ones we create for ourselves. You have created a cage for yourself, Gracie. Your cage has never been locked, but your fears have kept you trapped.
And then the entire ending happens, and I started sobbing even harder. It had been a long while where a movie emotionally affected me so much that as I was driving home, I had to pull over because I just started crying. I'm someone who has gone through severe depression and psychosis, and still today goes through depression. College being an especially scary time for me, and what's kind of ironic is that I saw this movie in the town where my mental health was at an all-time low. And I think seeing this in the town where my mental health almost took my life kind of felt like a reminder that I'm stronger than I know. If there's anything Memoir of a Snail taught me, it's this. Life might suck. It could suck immediately, or it may happen when you least expect it, but there's always something or someone worth staying for, even if it's something so mundane and insignificant. Because it very much indeed does get better. There may be something that might be holding you down, making you drown, but there'll always be something that'll help you swim, and eventually you'll find the surface, and that's not a maybe, that's a definite. What matters at the moment is that you're only human with rational emotions like everyone else. And as the movie states to us,
Life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forwards.
Thank you, Adam Elliott. You have no idea how much I, or really everyone, needed this movie. Alright, now time to explain myself. Let's sit by the fireplace while I tell you the future of this channel. So I'll just cut to the chase. One of the reasons of my absence is, well, first off, 2024 was a very hard year for me. I don't really want to get into that, but second reason is burnout. I had burnout for a bit. I didn't feel like writing scripts or editing videos or paying $20 for a monthly subscription on an editing software. But I didn't want to stop making videos, so for a while now I migrated to TikTok, which was a lot easier, and I met so many wonderful people there and gained some attention. But I don't know if you've been following the news lately. Yeah, the ban might be happening, which sucks because I really did enjoy making videos on there. Also, I really hate to admit this, but I have to speak my truth. My passion for film is slowly dying. Oh, I'll always love movies, but honestly, watching movies has started to become more of a chore for me, and the film community isn't exactly the greatest. I'll still review movies, but where my passion for film was slowing down, my passion for music was rising up. I started reviewing albums and I'm loving it. I've always loved music. I play the guitar and I love to sing, and I love discovering new music, and I love analyzing albums. Listening to new albums has not been a chore for me. So what I've been doing is a balance of movie and music reviews. So if this TikTok ban goes through, then that's what I'm gonna do here. Expect more reviews and commentaries on music, as well as movie reviews whenever there's something that I want to talk about or rank. I know some people watch me for my movie takes, and thank you for that, but I want to try this out and hopefully introduce you to some great music. Again, I still love movies. I'll always love movies. It's just that sometimes people want to broaden their horizons, and sometimes when you do, you find another passion. I hope you understand, and thanks for sticking around. Also, for every second of this video that you watch, you owe me $10, bitch.